So now you've learned how to graph equations that are already in slope-intercept form. And we've talked about what if they give you a point and a slope and how to graph it and how to find the equation. So now we want to know, what do we do if they don't give it to us in slope-intercept form, they give it to us in standard form. Now, my first answer to that is your new calculator will graph in standard form. It's not the easiest process, so I'm going to show you this first, and then I'll show you how to graph in your calculator with standard form. So I want to start with something that you're pretty familiar with. Take an equation like 2x plus 6 equals 10. All of you guys should be pretty familiar that by now you would draw the line, you would subtract 6 in order to get the x by itself. You would have 2x equals 4, and then we would divide in order to get the variable alone and to get the answer. Switching from standard form into slope-intercept form is essentially the same thing. So when we were solving equations, our goal was to get x by itself. When we are solving for slope-intercept form, our goal is going to be to get y by itself. So in order to do this, we're going to use the same process that we used to solve for x. So the first thing we're going to do, if it's in standard form, is to move x to the other side. So we're going to move x. And then the second step is going to be to divide if necessary. So let's look at example 1. This is something you guys should be pretty familiar with. If I go ahead and draw the line, I need to move x to the other side. Well, just like when I moved 6 to the other side, I had to do the opposite. I'm going to do the same thing with x. So this is a positive 1x. So to move it to the other side, I'm going to put minus x minus x. Now, you will notice, unlike what we did here, I lined these two things up because they were like terms. I did not line up the 3 with the x because these are not like terms. This is an x, this is not. So this does still cancel, and I have y equals. Now here, we're wanting to put it in mx plus b, so that means I want to put the x first. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down the negative x, and then I'm also going to bring down the positive 3. So that my equation is y equals negative x plus 3. So now, is y by itself? Yes, it is. That means we're ready to identify our parts. So if this is your y equals mx plus b, I can now pick out my pieces. So my b is going to be 3, and again, this is where I start, and it should be on the y-axis. The m is where I move, and in this case it is negative 1. And remember, this is where I move, and it's always based on rise over run, which you guys have done a lot with now. So if I graph, I'm going to start at 3, up 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put a point. And then remember, if my slope is negative 1, I go down 1. And then if there's not a bottom, I go right 1. So down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. And so you can start to see that this is going to be a lot of dots, which is fine. 1 as a slope always gives us lots of points to put on our graph. And then once we've created our scatter plot, now it should be really easy to connect the points and get our answer. So let's try the next one. The next one is 3x minus y equals negative 6. So just like we're solving, we're going to draw the line. Then I need to move x first. It is a positive 3x, so that means I'm going to do minus 3x minus 3x. Again, notice I do not line them up because they don't go together. So this would cancel, and I should bring down a negative y. And then I always put the x first, so negative 3x, and this is a minus 6. So now most people think we're done, but is the y by itself? No, there's a negative there. So remember that stands for a negative 1. So at the top it told us that we're going to move x and then divide if necessary. Well, this time it is necessary. So we would divide by negative 1, but we have to divide everything by negative 1. And the way that you can kind of remember that is if you kind of go back in the day and remember if we had like 2/3 x plus 6 equals 10, if we were going to multiply by 3, we had to multiply everything, okay, by 3. So this is the same idea. So if I divide by negative 1, those cancel and I have y equals, then I can put in my calculator negative 3 divided by negative 1, and it's going to tell me 3x. And then put in my calculator negative 6 divided by negative 1, and it's going to give me a plus 6. So now we're ready to start labeling the parts. So here is our y equals mx plus b. So my b value is positive 6, and my m is 3. So again, this tells me where I'm going to start, and then it tells me how I'm going to move. Okay, and I guess you could do B for begin, if that helps. B for begin, M for where you move. So I'm going to go to 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and put a point. And then from there I can do up 3 because it's positive, and then since there's no denominator, it's over 1. So up 1, 2, 3 over 1. Down 1, 2, 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. Good. And there's our graph. So far everything's kind of turned out kind of pretty. So now let's look what happens when things don't divide quite so evenly. So steps are the same. I'm going to draw the line. Now I'm going to move the x over. It is a positive 2x, so we're going to do minus 2x, minus 2x. Those cancel. I'm going to bring this whole piece down, and I've got negative 3y equals, I'm going to write the x first. Then we're going to divide everything by negative 3. So this cancels, and I have y equals. Now here's where it gets a little strange. If I type in negative 2 divided by negative 3 in my calculator, it actually just comes out as 2 over 3 positive. And I would show that to you, but I didn't bring a calculator home. So try it in your calculator, negative 2 divided by negative 3. It should come out to a positive 2 over 3, which is okay. We're actually used to having slopes that are fractions. So in this case, it is a fraction. And then we would do the same thing. Negative 9 divided by negative 3 comes out to positive 3. So now we're ready to start labeling our pieces and graphing. Y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and label your parts here and get that one graphed on your own. Let's go ahead and flip it over onto the back. This is an example that I didn't want you to come across and not know how to do. I wanted you to remember that what if the x was already moved? Well, this is kind of like if we already had 2x equals 10. At this point, all we have to do to solve is divide. So remember, when we're dealing with equations like this, it's the same thing. If I wanted to get y by itself, all I have to do is divide. So if I divide, I now have y equals 6 divided by 3 is 2x. So now we're ready to label y equals mx plus b. And we've talked about this a little bit before, but what to do if there's not a b value. Remember, that means we begin, okay, or we start at 0. And then, of course, our slope is 2, and that will tell us where to move. So you guys can go ahead and graph that one. Good. So now let's look at the problems that are on the bottom. There are a couple of different ways to do these. I really think the easiest way to do them is to actually just plug them in. It says circle the ordered pairs that are solutions or are on the line. That's what a solution is, a point that is on the line to each equation. So we could move this into y equals and then put it in the calculator and look at the table and see which one of these points I could find. But it's almost harder to put it in y equals than it is to just plug the numbers in. So in this case, this is x and this is y. So I can literally take x and replace it with -7 and take y and replace it with -3. So we can substitute these values in. So if I do 2 parentheses -7 minus 5 parentheses -3 and then equals 1, now that's pretty much calculator ready. And we can just type this into the calculator, and I have the ancient one here, but it will still show you the same thing. So 2 parentheses -7 and then minus 5 parentheses -3, and if I hit enter it says 1. So that means for this 1 does equal 1, so this is one of these solutions. Now it says circle the ordered pair or pairs. This is not a multiple choice question, so you need to try every single point and see which ones work in which equations. So you guys finish those notes up, and if you need any help, just ask.